I think I've had like my own personal problems with mental health. So and every year mental health week would come around, and I'd be like, I really want to do something to kind of raise awareness and to get people talking. Yeah. But then I just couldn't put my finger on what the right thing would be. I was going to do a series of paintings, kind of depicting what it's like dealing with particular issues and stuff. But I just didn't really think that would reach out to the people that get tattooed by me. It's kind of hard to hit that right point of people can be like, okay, I'm going to pay attention because it's displayed in the right way.
Well, yeah, it's communicating it in line with your branding as well, totally. In with tattoos as well. Yeah. Whereas I feel like a podcast is quite open-ended. I feel like anyone can really do it. Yeah. It's just sitting down and having a conversation, really.
Which is what it's kind of all about, I guess. So, what the kind of point of the whole thing is, if people see us sitting here having a conversation about something that needs to be spoken about, then that's immediately, an example of it. And even if it does look like we're fucking oh shit, this is hard to talk. That's kind of the point.
Exactly. Yeah. Here's the thing, I don't think this is going to be a conclusive conversation. I don't think we're going to solve depression and anxiety in a chat. No. But it's the way I see it is just the most important thing about it is having a conversation, and I think that's what Hope for the Day has always been about. So it's even if you're struggling to articulate yourself or anything like that, just telling someone you're not okay or wanting to actually speak about mental health problems is the first step, and it's actually the main thing. That was what really drew me to Hope for the Day as a brand, because when I first met them, when I first met Johnny, who runs Hope for the Day, it was at a Neck Deep show, and it was like a motivational talk before your set.
Yeah, it's like a bit of a hype man. Oh, cool. But with a serious little thing, serious edge to it.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I hadn't seen anything like it, and to be totally honest, when he first came on and started speaking about it, it's a bit abrasive, because it's sort of
just before you play.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, right. He comes up and he'll say hi, my name's Johnny. I work for an organisation called Hope for the Day. We're set up over at the back, and we're a mental health, and basically goes off in this whole this motivational speech basically before we play, and then kind of hypes everyone up for us. Just gets everyone going. He is good at what he does. He's this big Chicago dude. He's got a pure thickest Midwest accent, and
he's so enthusiastic as well. Okay. He really does live what he's talking about.
He's I know Johnny's had his fair share of I think Johnny's experience with it came from a few of his friends, or maybe one of his close friends commit suicide, and I think primarily is a suicide prevention charity, but obviously with along with that goes the mental health thing, and I think Johnny himself is he's fucking on it constantly, and that's just his brain tweaking, and that's how he kind of deals with his mental health things, is just by being busy and trying to get people to talk.
For a lot of people it's dealing with it is just being productive, and I think I was watching a TED Talks last night actually about it was kind of discussing if suicide was a choice or not, and it was from a guy who tried to commit suicide a few times, and he was basically saying we're all a byproduct of our own actions, and if you're constantly in situations where bad stuff's happening and you're not responding positively, it kind of brings your perception in further and further, and it's this. He was trying to explain how people with depression can kind of fall into a cycle, and you get into a rut, and then that brings on other things, and not having a positive mental attitude can really be the end of you type thing. And the point he was trying to make was when someone does try and commit suicide, it's really their only choice. And it's they've been left with no other options, because this is the only point in their life which is a whirlwind of chaos, where they have control over their life. And I think that's so it's a really disturbing thought, that just that's the one bit of life you get to control, is taking it.
Yeah, it's the last bit.
And I think the point he was trying to make is that it's not a choice that you have. It's because it's your only choice. It's just if that's your only way out and your only way to take control of your life, that's not a choice, and it's not a rational choice.
I know people who've tried to take their own lives, and been close to people who are just severely depressed and don't know what to do about it, and I've had a lot of conversations with people close to me about what they can do, or what how you can try and make it better, and I think what it comes down to is that it doesn't really ever get, you can't fix it. There's no quick fix to any of these things, but having those conversations will immediately make you feel better. I'm not a psychiatrist, but just saying, here are your options. It's not as bad as you think, because depression cuts off any sort of perspective you have.
It just swarms you.
Yeah, and it cuts off, your options. And again, like you were saying, if it leads to that ultimate decision of I'm going to try and take my own life, it's because depression doesn't allow you to
think productively,
think outside of what you're feeling right now. And just having those conversations with people sometimes, and fans and stuff, it was something that I actively wanted to do with kind of our breakout record. It was called Life's Not Out to Get You, and it was this positive, probably naively positive at this point, it was, looking back on it, and as I've grown up, it's I feel like having a dose of realism to your thinking is
it was funny because your album after that was sort of just like it was like a realisation.
Everything can be amazing, but still kind of tied in with the, think positively, but bad things are going to happen to you in life, man, and some of it you cannot avoid, and but it's that sentiment. It's even though bad things are going to happen, it doesn't mean it's necessarily the be all and end all. But I've met fans, man, who have given me razor blades and stuff, and I'm so I kind of felt this responsibility to be right, I'm going to give you something to kind of just switch up your perspective on things if you're feeling down. And I've had so many fans come up to me and say you saved my life, which is a lot, and I don't feel like I necessarily
but
they make that choice essentially. If that means it made you feel a certain way, good, but you made that choice not to take your own life, or to keep self-harming or whatever. And
I think it's just that level of escapism, really. When you listen to music, sometimes you get that feeling of a level of understanding of yourself that you're hearing through someone else's lyrics, where you're just shit, I didn't think anyone went through this. And that's why I feel a lot of people engage with emotive lyrics and just stuff with a deeper level, because it's something you can properly engage with.
Not just talking about partying.
It's nice to have a platform and to do what you do, and to the extent I guess what I do, and to be able to actually affect or try and change, or try and get people talking about what's going on.
Definitely.
In a way that in a way that's not preachy, in a way that's just helpful. This is something that I've gone through, or that my friends have gone through, and I've experienced it. This is me, and it putting it across. And if that helps you, that's fantastic. That's great. And that's I think more people should use where they are in a more positive and sort of instrumental way like that, because like you say, a lot of people don't. They're just singing about getting messed up, or just silliness, really.
A vital thing that maybe your average person who hasn't had to deal with things firsthand can maybe learn a little bit. What I would hope could maybe take away from this is just the manner and maybe the way that you approach that. It's hard enough getting the conversation going in the first place, but then it's having that conversation can be quite tough.
It's a very sensitive topic.
It is, because I think as well, because of the stigma that's attached to it, with mental health, it's very difficult to talk about it yourself. So if you're going through something, I've had it in the past with friends, where I've been yesterday I had a panic attack, and they're oh yeah, I get those, and you're really, it's kind of difficult, because they don't fully sort of understand the severity of what that is, and they're but you'll be all right, you'll be fine,
it's telling you to cheer up.
It's kind of or it's you just need to calm down, or just calm down, and or they brush it off as maybe not not really a problem, because I get anxious sometimes, I get anxious about that, and they're trying to understand, but I think it's different, isn't it?
I think we all
having a problem with anxiety, having a problem with anxiety or being anxious sometimes are two kind of different things. So that's probably another puts a barrier between you wanting to talk about it with somebody, because there's that worrying of it being accepted or being understood, and wanting to talk about it, but also just suppressing it and being like, maybe I can deal with it myself.
Yeah, or just like not wanting to seem like a bit of a weirdo. I think,
or like think you're going crazy.
Yeah, innit?
Like if there's so many things that you think at the time. Like for me, when I was like experiencing like bad anxiety and panic attacks, I didn't know what was happening to me. Yeah, I genuinely thought I was going a bit mad. Like, you know, and like I went to the doctors and they were like, oh, it's probably your blood sugar, like, you know, because I was feeling weird all the time. You know, I was feeling really like lightheaded, and like then I was I was giving myself panic attacks because I was worrying about passing out and all these things. So like I'd go to the doctors and they'd be like, oh, we'll just check your blood sugar. So like I'd do that for months, and then I'd go back and they'd be like, oh, maybe it's not that, maybe it's your diet. So like, you know, there's all these things, like you're jumping through all these hoops, and then finally, you know, someone was like, it's probably this, it's your anxiety. And
the difficulty is it doesn't have like a set formula where it's like there's a particular way to get through it, and at the end of it you'll be absolutely fine.
Definitely not.
It's all sort of like coping.
It's a constant thing, and again, that experience rings true with someone super close to me, where they've experienced a lot of that throughout their lives, and you know, again, a similar sort of thing. A lot of it being health anxiety, like, oh my god, am I sick? Am I ill? Am I doing? And that triggers anxiety. And blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But then when it comes down to it, and then, you know, it gets to a point where you can't really figure out anything that's physically wrong with you, and you're looking at it and going, well,
that's almost nerve-wracking in itself.
Yeah, exactly. You're looking at it, and it's like, well, if there's nothing wrong with you physically, you know, to a large extent, then maybe it's time to start taking care of what's going on up here. And that's something that, again, recently I've had some experience with. Is like when it gets so bad that it's like, do you get help and go to a doctor or see a psychiatrist and maybe get on meds and whatever, or do you try and tackle it yourself and think that you can? And that's a big dilemma, I think, with a lot of people, because if people are suffering quite silently and they don't know what to do, sometimes they just think, you know, they can't deal with it themselves, but they don't want to go to a doctor. It's like,
you almost feel a bit silly as well, like I did, as like going to the doctor, me being like, I'm feeling like spacey all the time. I don't
low mood.
They're like,
and you're just like, low mood doesn't describe what you're it is.
I don't feel in control of like my mind. And when you say things like that, you think they're gonna think you're mad. Like feeling like you're not in control of your own mind is so strange. Like it's so weird, and it's hard to try and explain that to someone as well, especially a doctor, because you think they're just like going to be like, oh, we'll just put you on these meds and stuff, you know, and that will help. Like we'll put you on this, like they put me on this this beta blocker which slowed my heart rate down. It like propranolol. So it like reduces the effects of like what you would experience when you're having panic attacks. So like, but you kind of like got to premeditate it. So like you take it and then it works, but you're already at a weird point by that point. So it doesn't really work. I think the only way is educating your brain or changing your brain to not see these things as catastrophic. So like if you're feeling hot, it's just normal because it's hot, you know, like it's not because you're going to pass out or something terrible is going to happen.
But it's so easy to get flustered with that. Like my grandma's like that at the moment, with it being like quite hot up north. It's like she'll be like, she has quite bad anxiety anyway, and she'll be telling me she's having an anxiety attack. It's difficult, right? She's got dementia, so like some of it is genuine anxiety which needs to be treated as such, and then some of it's just like weird pharmaceutical addiction and whatever. But like sometimes it is just down to keeping your own, maintaining your own well-being, and it's just like it's introspective, so it's just like make sure you're hydrated, as silly as that sounds, and like exercising when you can, getting daylight, and little simple things that like I think depression or anxiety might like shun you away from. So like you want to stay indoors and you don't want to socialise with
it's
people.
avoidance. It's avoidance a lot of the time with it, because like if you have an experience, like say you could get on a busy train and like you feel terrible and like you get swarmed with that feeling, you might not get on a train anymore. You might be like, oh, I'm going to go on the train when it's not rush hour. So then you're avoiding that situation because that feeling you have when you do that is like horrible. But you know what you should actually do is be like, try and rationalise it and be like, it's busy on here, like it's hot, I'm gonna feel like weird, but so does everyone else. Like, do you really think everyone enjoys being on a packed train? No one does. Who the hell?
I actually really enjoy.
I love it.
I
love like the sweat, people reading big papers in my face, like
smelly food.
Yeah, love all that. Love reading people's texts over their shoulders.
Yeah. Don't say you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Having one person could do a world of
and
good.
It helps you so much, I think. Well, that's the unfortunate thing, is just like when you're on your own with it, it really does feel like you're on your own with it, because it's not, you haven't shared the problem with anyone. Like with my grandma, especially when she has her anxiety attacks or whatever, all she needs you to do really is sit down and speak with her for like 10 minutes. And
just let her get it out.
And literally just only through talking about it alone, you can see her calm down. And you see it like be less of a problem, because you know, she's told it to me, I've then rationalised it and, you know, communicated it back to her in a way that she feels a little bit better about it. But I think, I don't know, it's a difficult one, because I do think some people just don't have those connections sometimes, and I think that's the unfortunate bit. So it's like that's why it's important that, like, even if it's not something you're going through, it's always really good to just talk about it. Really,
I think it's also because like a lot of people that are dealing with mental health issues appear so confident on the outside. Like, you know, like when I'm in the shop, I'm like shouting, you know, I'm like I'm like seeing what everyone's up to, you know, with customers when they're coming in, I'm like super chatty with them, blah blah blah. So for me to then turn around and be like, in this situation I'm like under a cloud, and like, you know, I feel like all these things.
And do you
don't necessarily think that like that would happen to somebody that's like that on the exterior, you know?
Do you get anxiety in those sort of situations as well?
I mean, it's not too bad in the shop. It like, I think it's not too bad in the shop because I feel comfortable there, and like a tattoo, like my best friend's tattoo next to me and stuff. So I have an anchor there.
Surroundings and stuff.
But yeah, there's definitely certain situations that will like send me flapping about things. But like, you know, I've been for CBT, like cognitive behaviour therapy, which like that's the whole thing about training your brain, and through mindfulness, you know, they speak about that, about just being aware of the present moment and not letting your brain run away with itself, because that's when you start to get panic, and then you're not going to stop it, because
definitely. I remember like my first exposure to someone with depression, and it was like I couldn't really understand it, to be honest. It seemed so illogical, where it was like, what do you mean you feel like shit? Like, do you know? And it's like, looking back on it now, it's kind of stupid. But at the time, I was so baffled by, like, you know, we're in a good situation now. Like,
when I'm sad, I know what I'm sad about.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're sad,
that's it. And
you don't know.
It's not tangible, is it though? Like, if you'd come in here today with your leg broken, I'd be like, "What's happened? How did you do that?" You know, like everyone's like, "What did you do? Oh God, how bad is the break?" Blah blah. Because you can see it, can't you? It's something physical that you can actually like understand. That's a broken bone. I know that would have really hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But when it's something mental, it's much harder to get a grasp on it.
It's almost conceptual. It's like, it is how you define it, and sometimes that can be so hard to articulate to someone who hasn't done it themselves or like been through it. And I guess that's just the communication error that we need. I think it's being respectful of it for what it is. So like, there's certain bits of it which I don't get because I haven't had it. And in which case I need to, you know, step back and be mindful and respect someone's, you know, want to be on their own, or like, do you know what I mean, have a bit of space and stuff like that. Like, sometimes it doesn't make it better if I'm like, you know, trying to coddle.
I made that mistake where I'm like, what is it?
It just makes it worse. It just makes it worse.
Honestly, sometimes all people want is literally and you know, it might be hard to do this sometimes based on what your relationship is with that person, but sometimes just, man, a hug and a like, you're gonna be alright. It's cool, man. Like, whatever, or you know, whoever it is, like, this is gonna be alright. Like, you don't have to tell me about it now, but
just that you're there.
Yeah, definitely.
That is sometimes all it takes. Like sometimes if you don't quite understand it and you're not sure how to deal with it yet, even something as simple
just
as
some
that.
human contact.
And just
or just like I'm here if you want to ever just talk about it.
Isn't it? Yeah. And for people like me who haven't had the experience with it, is if it's just, I think there's like the people who need the help, and I think the point with those, you know, people who are suffering should be get the help, or, you know, that take your mental health into your own hands and be proactive about it. Don't let yourself kind of like fall down that hole. But the people who don't, you know, haven't experienced it, you just need to educate yourself. Maybe even if it's just a case of like a Google search of like how to deal with anxiety. You might get some absolute toss, but you might get one bit of information that's like, okay, I'll try that.
I get that.
You know,
To be honest, bro, that was the first thing I did when I first got like exposed to someone with depression. The first thing I did was I googled it, like how to deal with someone with it, because it was really bugging me out. I was kind of just like, why?
You want to help?
Because it's like, why can't I cheer this person up? And then you realise it's not your responsibility to do that. It's your responsibility to like maybe, you know, support them, or, you know, facilitate some sort of
it's not a it's
them.
like again, it's like with tackling, I think, depression, it's not like a case of cheer up, it's a case of like work through it. Don't just cheer up. You know? Like, and that's what I struggle getting my head around for ages, and it frustrated me, like, oh, why can't I help this person? And it's like
because sometimes it's not about talking about that problem, it's just like keeping yourself productive, or like the whole introspective thing of like you just like going to the gym or something like that can really help you.
They say exercise, don't they? I guess, cause
definitely, man.
I guess it's like a meditation. Like, I mean, I've like started meditating probably around the same sort of time as I was like really going through stuff, and actually that really helps, because it you know, and it's like, you know, you can find meditation in anything, like playing, you know, like when you're playing you're not thinking about like what I've got to do the next day, or like, you know, like any of these things. You're just thinking about that moment. I'm in that moment, I'm playing, like people are vibing, you know, I'm having a great time, like the guys are having a great time. So that's a meditation. I think you've got to find that sort of like practice in things that you do. Going to the gym, that's great, because all you're thinking about at that time is working out and like bettering yourself, and like that's time when you're not thinking about how bad you feel or whatever's going on, or you know.
And also you are bettering yourself. You're coming out of there and, you know, you've raised your heartbeat, like chemically as well. Like I go to the gym now because I just think it's like I've just felt myself happier in a weird way. Like if you're doing it every day, like you might nappy yourself out, but like you just feel naturally, I don't know, like more cognitive in a way.
Like you feel more switched on. And generally the link between like a healthy mind and a healthy body is like for sure a thing, man. If you eat healthily and live healthily, you know, we're all guilty of not.
Oh yeah,
not like some health.
Yeah, that's it.
But like,
I was gonna say you're a right gym rat.
Mate, I went to the gym for a month and I was like done with it. But at the same time, I was like, yes, I feel so good. I feel great.
But you got the band.
Yeah, you still got touring.
It's not like you know what I mean.
And like I've got time.
Right, you get your cardio.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a nice bit of cardio.
Yeah, I get the cardio in there, and like, man, I've got time. When I hit 30 and this just goes, boom, then we'll see about the gym. But right now, I'm doing all right.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's totally like that correlation between healthy mind and body is for real.
100%.
But even just having like, I know it's hard. Like some people are just like, oh, I'm not any good at anything. It's like, how do you know? Even if you're not good at it, like I suck at skating, but I love doing it.
Yeah.
I suck at surfing, but I'll have a go because there's something to do. And you know, it maybe might take a bit of courage to start, like, you know, like painting, I imagine, is like a super like cathartic like meditation type thing where you're just focused on that one thing, even if it is like, I'm going to draw or I'm going to read or something. That can be super helpful.
Something to get sucked into, which I think is like, it's difficult if you're not a naturally creative person, which is where I think I'd suggest stuff like going to the gym and things like that.
Definitely.
But like in terms of like if you are creative, just using that as an outlet, I think. Like going back on the music thing, I think like some people have a really, like, obviously you're quite praised for like wearing your heart on your sleeve, and I think it's one of those things where I think your lyrics in particular can leave you very vulnerable, because you have actually just put it all out on the floor type thing, and I think that's what people it's what they engage with, but I also feel like in a certain way that's what they aspire to do, is just like sort of being able to express your emotions in that way.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's unapologetic really. It's just saying like you're not feeling okay, or like, you know what I mean, like talking about life experiences very honestly.
No, it's definitely hard to like to lay yourself out like that, but at a time like that's when for me I've had the most kind of like I legitimately had like the most spiritual experience I've ever felt of like, oh my god, I think I'm actually like experiencing some sort of like awakening, was writing the last record that we did, and I was sitting there and I was like just killing, just beating myself up about this record and writing these lyrics and trying to get it out, and it was just like stressing massively. And then I just took a second, was just sat there, laptop in front of me, and like the sun was going down, we were in this apartment, and like there was this big ass Buddha head, and I just stared at this Buddha head, and I don't think it was like God or like Buddha or anything like that, but I just had this like
a little bit
pure moment of like clarity and just like, wow, like actually I know exactly what I need
just
to
took
do.
a minute.
And just I did. I just took a minute, took myself out of that thing, and just went, look at that sunset. That is awesome. Look at where I am right now. I'm in LA. I'm writing a record. And boom.
Yeah.
I think having that, even if it's like 10%, you're 10% better the next day, I think you notice that so much. And like I really took on that, like it really struck a chord with me of just like little things that I recognise myself doing that probably aren't the best for me, and it's like, right, well what if I cut out just that one thing? And you notice it straight away, like even if it's like a tiny bit better, because you've cut that tiny bit out of your life, you feel you can see the difference straight away. And it's like, if you're able to do that in a productive way, where it's like every day you're going to make this little bit of progression, you're accepting the fact that it's not an overnight success, and it's just about getting it done really. Well, that's when it goes back to that bringing in your perception to the point where, you know, that might be your last, you know, your final choice or whatever. Totally. By you improving yourself, you're expanding your own like opportunities as well, being able to see like, right, I'm interested in this, well maybe I could do this. Like I couldn't really picture myself a year ago like sitting down and doing a podcast, because it's just something that I was interested in doing. But then like if you've got an opportunity to do it, just like put yourself out the comfort zone and give it a go, because like what's the worst that could happen?
Honestly, all the power is in your hands. I say this a lot, like to my friends and stuff, like the only person who can affect change in your life in a real permanent way is yourself. And there have come
that overtakes, you know, car crashes, cancer, like all this stuff. And like a lot of the data which I found was surrounding like men's mental health is a big worry at the moment. Like 75% of suicide in the UK is male. Which is it's like three times more. Is like a pretty big proportion, to the point where you feel like, right, you need to actually look at that and be a bit more.
Do you think that's because like maybe men internalize things a little too much, and it's a pride thing? Like, you know, the idea of like that, you know, I suppose the idea that you're meant to be like strong and like all these stupid stereotypes, but in your head you don't want to admit that there's some sort of problem, especially a mental problem, you know. Like I think that definitely does play a part in it, like that we don't want to talk to each other, you know, like men don't talk to each other, you know. Like I think, you know, like it's definitely changing, but like, you know, on a whole not as much, you know, like
not really.
There's a wow, what's his fucking name? The proper Cockney comedian. What's his fucking name?
Mickey Flanagan.
He's got a bit like some joke where his wife's like, "Oh, did you ask Terry how Sue was?" And he's like, "I didn't even ask him how he was."
Yeah,
it's just one of them, like, you don't even ask. And I think especially like obviously we're in creative kind of industries, and you know, again with creativity and that kind of, if that way inclined becomes more expression and more open-minded. But if you're a bloke who's working construction and you've been struggling, that's a tough environment to be,
because you're conditioned to be a certain way, aren't you? Which is crazy.
So I think maybe it might be that people, I don't know, there's probably a lot of factors that come into it. Like, yeah, men internalize things way more, and there's kind of this stereotype of being a tough guy and,
like
and
manning
having to
up.
hold it. Yeah, exactly,
I mean?
manning up,
little
like
things like that.
Yeah,
It's where you need to kind of like break down those gender stereotypes and just be like, right, well, I don't need to be manly all the time.
No.
I can say I'm having a shit day, and that doesn't make me any less of a person.
No.
But it's weird because I think like I definitely have friends who I feel comfortable saying like, you know, I'm feeling kind of shit, but then at the same time I've definitely got people who I'd never even dream about having that conversation with.
Yeah.
You know, like just people you might know casually, and like you're just not going to get into it with them. And I guess it's like how do you overcome that? Because it seems like with these stats, it definitely something needs to happen.
Yeah.
Like we need to have conversations like this, or like, you know, put people in that position of like, you don't feel comfortable, well, we're going to talk about it kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's coming into play more in tattoo shops. It's coming into play in gigs, and, you know, clothing companies are starting to, you know, have a message behind them too. So I think the more that it gets into maybe more those more male dominated industries, the more it'll, you know, the better it'll get. It definitely, you know, it's definitely becoming more of a thing amongst like the office type thing, for sure. You know, people's mental health is kind of quite important in those situations, but business environment can be, I don't know, maybe as well it comes down to the kind of jobs that men are more inclined to do, you know, like
well, like construction you can't really see. I personally couldn't see that like evolving into like a therapeutic environment
whereas an office scenario could, but there's so much pressure on and it's not just men, it's women too, but like, you know, unfortunately, or how whatever powers that may be, or whatever fucking economic sociological fucking phenomenon it is, there are men that are in, you know, that have really really fucking stressful jobs, and maybe as well it comes down to that thing of like the pressure on men to not necessarily even just be tough guys, but for men to have the answers a lot of the time can be and I know that obviously the gender conversation and the you know, that is a massive conversation right now, so that is changing, but there's definitely still that pressure that some men that will feel, for sure. Like, I've got a super stressful job and I've maybe manage a workforce, or like I've got a family to provide for, because me as a male, I feel like I have to provide for them, and it's like
these roles that you need to fill, but it's like, well, why? Like, if you're not fully like up to that role, you need to be able to communicate that and not just sort of like fit the bill and then, you know, fuck your mental health behind it. Like, I don't know, it's a weird one.
Not all masculinity. Not all masculinity is like a terrible thing. You know, it's what makes men and it's what makes women women. Yeah. But there is probably some elements of masculinity that maybe you do need to kind of be broken down. Yeah. Like, you know, and do kind of need to, you know, like, it's okay for you to talk to your workmates about it. If you're a big butch bloke and you're in a particularly masculine environment, that it shouldn't be a bad thing to kind of break that masculinity down, because any fucking bloke, no matter what, no matter how big and hard they are, scratch beneath the surface and there's probably a lot going on.
Yeah, there's emotions there still.
Of course there is.
Yeah, and sometimes people like like going back onto the social media thing, I think some people like overcompensate that, so it's just like if you project a happy person or like an edgy person or whatever, you're wanting people to think that that's you, when really behind closed doors it's not a true representation of who you are. Like, it's been certain people who you meet where it's like you might have an idea. That's the difficulty with modern age. It's like you might meet someone and you know their social media profile before you know them. And sometimes it's completely conflicting.
Living up to, you know, your image or this idea that you have to be something. And maybe it's another thing as well, like that it's men that commit suicide. More suicide is more prevalent amongst men, is because men feel the need to kind of take things into their own hands, take control of that situation. So this is what I'm going to do. Whereas women are more likely to probably talk about it and to kind of even though it's mental health, it's hard no matter what. You know, I feel like a woman could maybe be a little bit more rational in that situation. Like, have you? I know I've been in an emotional state before Well, anyone can get in an emotional state where they just block out all other options. Yeah. But I think men are just more erratic and more drastic in those situations. I think it can just be...
I'd say we're definitely more irrational, irrationally thinking, and maybe that's a contributing factor to it.
And I think, but the more you just kind of, it gets brought into these workplaces, these more male-dominated industries, it's like it's a huge it's another huge thing within like the army and shit is another area where like mental health is massive, and it's not just PTSD, it can be fucking everything, man. Like that can be a really tough environment to talk about it, but the more it comes into play, and it is, the better it's going to be, and that statistic might just be one of those sad statistics in life. You can try and reduce it, but it might always be like, sadly men commit suicide more than women do. But again, statistically, if it comes down to gender, cool, but I think as a whole, men, everyone commits suicide. There's probably, again, you could probably look at it from a trans angle as well, like probably
it's even higher for the trans community. It's even higher suicide, which is like, well, I suppose that's it's a different discussion.
I guess when it comes down to it, though, it's probably a case of identity and a case of like how you feel in whatever you identify as, just struggling with that. Struggling with that identity crisis or that non-acceptance or lack of acceptance that you're not getting. And again, anyone should know. It would be great if you could say no one ever killed himself ever again past this day, but it's not going to happen. It's one of them where it's a sad fact of life that people take their own lives, but we can severely hamper that, or we can really cut that statistic down by having the right kind of mental health infrastructure in place, doing things like this, talking about it, and just making mental health less of a thing that it's like a
sensitive thing that you don't want to delve into because it's a bit sticky for some people, and like you don't get it, but then sometimes you just don't need to get it. Like sometimes it's just about putting it out there, and then it's out, because then it's a problem shared is a problem halved, and that really does ring true when it comes to mental health problems, because just through communicating it and just starting the conversation, you're already on a road to progress, I guess. A road to recovery even. But I think we're going to call it there. I think.
Cool.
Yeah,
wicked.
Thank you very much, guys, for doing this. I appreciate it, man.
Pleasure,
Thank you for coming down.
Pleasure.
Yeah,
sweet.
That was good. Cool.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah,
I was happy with that, man. That was good. We were fucking chatting for.
It went fluid.
Do I just
tap the top of it? I have no idea.
I'm going to leave it. I'm going to remove all the footage that way.
I'll just cover the front out with a bit of tape.
Yeah.
It was a lot.